Let's take a break. The words flew out of my mouth before I could fully process them, like a bird escaping its cage. Was I crazy? Probably, but the monotony of our marriage was suffocating me, and I needed air. Maybe this would help, maybe. When I suggested it to Mark, I expected a fight, or at least some resistance. But no, he just nodded. Yeah, maybe that's a good idea, he said. Just like that, no questions, no arguments. Well, that was unexpected. I mean, seriously, who agrees to a break that easily? Shouldn't he have been at least a little upset? I felt a weird mix of relief and confusion. Was he as tired of this rut as I was? Or was he just waiting for an out? Either way, the idea of a break suddenly seemed more appealing. Maybe we both needed this. That first night alone was bizarre. It was like stepping into a new life. I indulged in a long, luxurious bath, something I hadn't done in ages. I could almost feel the stress melting away with the bubbles. Then I curled up on the couch and binge-watched my favorite show, something Mark never had the patience for. Liberating? Absolutely, but also, strangely empty. The next day, I decided to reconnect with some old friends. We met up for brunch, and I realized how much I'd missed these little moments. The laughter, the stories, the gossip, it was like finding a piece of myself I'd forgotten existed. For a moment, I felt like my old self again, carefree and vibrant. That's when I bumped into Tom. Yes, Tom, the old flame from my college days. There he was, looking annoyingly handsome and as charming as ever. He greeted me with that familiar, cocky smile, and we ended up chatting for hours. It was surreal, catching up with him after all these years. He was attentive, genuinely interested in what I'd been up to, and he made me feel, well, special. Tom's subtle advances were almost too subtle, like he was testing the waters. He complimented my hair, my laugh, even the way I sipped my coffee. It was flattering, but also a bit unnerving. I brushed it off as harmless flirting, but part of me couldn't help wondering if there was more to it. Was this just a friendly catch-up, or was he trying to rekindle something? As the day turned into evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that my life was on the brink of something. What exactly, I had no idea. But the break, Mark's easy agreement, reconnecting with friends, and running into Tom, everything felt like pieces of a puzzle I hadn't yet figured out. So there I was, alone again in our too big house, mulling over the day's events. The quiet was almost deafening, amplifying every thought and doubt in my head. Was this break really the right move? Or had I just opened a Pandora's box of problems I wasn't ready to face? I crawled into bed, the sheets cold and uninviting. Sleep came in fits, broken by dreams of what-ifs and maybes. In the silence, my mind kept wandering back to Tom's smile and Mark's indifferent agreement. I couldn't help but feel a gnawing anxiety about what tomorrow would bring. But for now, I had to believe this break was the right choice. For both of us, or at least for me. And if it wasn't, well, I'd just have to deal with that when the time came. Because right now, all I had was the quiet, the questions, and the unsettling sense that my life was about to change in ways I couldn't yet imagine. You know that feeling when something's just off? Like the universe is sending you a memo that you can't quite read yet? That's exactly where I was a few days into our break. Suddenly, Mark was unusually cheerful and distant whenever we talked. Cheerful? Really? This was a guy who complained about the weather being too predictable. Now he was all smiles and sunshine. It didn't add up. Then I started noticing other things. He was dressing better, like he was auditioning for a role in some corporate drama. And he got secretive about his plans. I mean, the guy who used to text me every time he sneezed was now Mia more often than not. Suspicious? You bet. One evening, while trying to distract myself with a jog, I found myself, almost by instinct, passing by our house. That's when I saw it. Mark through the window, laughing and having dinner with some woman I didn't recognize. They looked cozy. My stomach did a backflip, and I felt the blood drain from my face. Who the hell was she? I wanted to burst in there, demand answers. But something stopped me. Instead, I decided to gather more information. Yeah, I know, very Sherlock of me, but I needed to be sure before I confronted him. So, I walked away, heart pounding, mind racing with possibilities. The next few days were a whirlwind of flowers and gifts from Mark. Seriously, where was this guy during our anniversary last year? Out of character didn't even begin to cover it. Each delivery only made my suspicions grow. What was he trying to cover up? I decided to pay him a surprise visit at his office, just to see if I was overreacting. Except, he wasn't there. His secretary, looking mildly confused, told me he had taken the day off. Without telling me. Perfect. My paranoia levels were officially through the roof. So, I did what any suspicious wife on a break would do. I followed him. Discreetly, of course. It wasn't hard. He had a pattern. Work, then out somewhere. I tailed him to a cozy little restaurant where, surprise surprise, he was dining with the same woman from our house. They were deep in conversation, heads close together, laughing like old friends. Or something more. I felt a mix of anger and nausea. Who was she? A coworker? An old friend? Or worse, a new flame? Every scenario played out in my head, each one worse than the last. Confronting him here, now, wasn't an option. I needed to know more before making my move. As I watched them, my mind churned with questions and doubts. Was this what our break had come to? Had he already found someone else? I left the restaurant with more questions than answers, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. This break was supposed to help us, not tear us apart. But as I walked away, one thing was clear. I had to find out the truth, no matter what it took. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'd have thought it was a plot twist straight out of a bad soap opera. But there I was, in that cozy restaurant, spying on my husband and his mystery woman. Just as I was about to leave, a voice called my name. Hey, isn't that you, Sarah? It was Lisa, one of Mark's coworkers. Great, just what I needed. But her uncomfortable expression piqued my curiosity. Maybe she knew something. We arranged to meet later in a secluded park. When we finally sat down on a weathered bench, Lisa's unease was palpable. I didn't want to say anything at work, but Mark's been seeing that woman, Julia, for a few months now. I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. Julia. The name fit perfectly into the puzzle of my unraveling life. As if the universe was having a good laugh at my expense. Lisa handed me an envelope. Inside were pictures and messages between Mark and Julia. Clear as day, their affair laid bare in front of me. How had I missed this? Anger and hurt swirled inside me, threatening to overflow. Thanks, Lisa, I muttered, still in shock. I'll handle it from here. As I walked away, a plan started forming in my mind. If Mark thought he could play me for a fool, he had another thing coming. First things first, I needed to understand Julia's game. This wasn't just about my marriage anymore, it was about exposing her for who she really was. I hired a private investigator to dig into Julia's background. It didn't take long for the dirt to surface. Turns out, Julia had a history of targeting wealthy married men. Her relationships always ended in messy breakups, with her walking away with significant financial gains. She was a pro at this. Knowing this fueled my determination. This wasn't just a fling, it was a calculated move on her part. With the investigator's report in hand, I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and rage. Julia's past was a litany of deceit and manipulation. Armed with this knowledge, I was ready to confront Mark. I waited until he came home one evening, the guilt and nervousness etched on his face. I threw the evidence on the table, watching his eyes widen in horror. Care to explain this? He stammered, trying to find the right words. Sarah, I'm sorry, it just happened. Julia, she. Save it, Mark, I snapped. I know all about Julia and her little game. You're just another notch on her bedpost. But this ends now. His shoulders slumped, the weight of his actions finally sinking in. I'll do anything to make this right. Please, just give me a chance. The sincerity in his voice gave me pause. Maybe he was genuinely remorseful. Or maybe he was just terrified of losing everything. Either way, I had the upper hand now. You'll do more than that, Mark. You're going to help me expose Julia for who she really is. He nodded, defeated. Together, we began to plot our next move. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive him, but one thing was certain. Julia's reign of manipulation was about to end. And I was going to make sure of it. I never thought I'd be living out some twisted reality TV show, but there I was, plotting revenge like a character in a bad thriller. Just when I thought things couldn't get weirder, they did. Enter Tom, my old flame, offering his support. Because what's a revenge plot without a little help from the past? Use Julia's history against her, he suggested over coffee one morning. It was surreal, discussing strategy with Tom like we were planning a heist. He was all in, and I wasn't going to turn down his help. He had charm and connections, exactly what I needed. So, we devised a plan. Step 1. I befriended Julia under a false name, spinning a story about being new in town and looking for friends. It was almost too easy. She welcomed me into her circle, and I played the part perfectly, hiding my disdain behind a smile. We went for lunches, spa days, the works. I had to resist the urge to throw my drink in her face every time she laughed about something Mark did. Julia, oblivious to my true identity, started revealing more than I'd hoped for. She bragged about her plans to take my husband for all he was worth, assuming he would leave me for her. It was infuriating, but also exactly what I needed. The more she talked, the clearer her schemes became. With this inside information, we were ready to set the trap. Tom and Lisa were my secret weapons. We organized a company event, a charity gala that would have everyone dressed to the nines. The perfect stage for a public spectacle. Everything was in place. Tom, playing the role of the concerned friend, tipped off a few key people about Julia's past. Lisa, with her network of gossip-loving colleagues, ensured the whispers spread like wildfire. All we needed was the right moment. And it came. Julia was basking in the spotlight, schmoozing with the company bigwigs, when Tom and I struck. I walked in arm with Mark, who was in on the plan. We confronted Julia publicly, unveiling her deceitful history with the help of a slideshow. Yes, a slideshow. Tom's idea, and surprisingly effective. The room fell silent as image after image flashed on the screen, each one a testament to Julia's manipulation. The murmurs turned to gasps. Mark looked humiliated, but I had no time for pity. This was about exposing the truth. Julia's face went from confident to ashen in seconds. She tried to play it off, but the damage was done. The whispers grew louder, the stares more intense. She was cornered, and she knew it. Later that night, Julia, in a last-ditch effort, tried to retaliate. She threatened to reveal some embarrassing secrets about Mark unless he compensated her financially. Classic move, but we were prepared. I enlisted a lawyer, one who specialized in cases like ours. With his help, we safeguarded our assets and turned the tables on her threats. Julia found herself in a legal chokehold, unable to extort us without facing severe consequences. It was a mess, no doubt. But as the dust settled, I realized something. This chaos had brought clarity. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage, I was fighting for my dignity. And with allies like Tom and Lisa, I knew I could win. As I lay in bed that night, the weight of the day's events pressing down on me, I allowed myself a small, grim smile. Julia might have started this war, but I was damn well going to finish it. If you thought the story couldn't get any crazier, hold on to your hats. It was about to go full soap opera mode. You know how they say the truth is stranger than fiction? Yeah, well, turns out they were right. Just when I thought we had Julia cornered, enter stage left, her ex-boyfriend. The investigator had tracked him down, and he was more than willing to spill the beans in exchange for a little payback. His name was Dan, and he had a lot to say about our mutual nemesis. Dan wasn't your average jilted ex. He had the dirt on Julia, and he was ready to help us expose her schemes. Turns out, Julia's manipulation skills weren't just limited to my husband. She had a whole network of wealthy families she'd been targeting. The plot thickened, and so did my determination to bring her down. Mark, seeing the extent of Julia's deception, made earnest attempts to reconcile. He was genuinely remorseful, which was a good start. Flowers, dinners, heartfelt apologies, the whole 9 yards. But forgiveness doesn't come easy, especially when trust is shattered. Still, I appreciated the effort. At least he wasn't the spineless coward I'd started to think he was. During a late-night meeting with Dan, I discovered the shocking truth about Julia's operations. She was part of a larger network targeting wealthy families, using her charm and cunning to worm her way into their lives and wallets. It was like something out of a crime novel, but this was my life we were talking about. So, we hatched a plan. With Dan's help, and a few trusted friends, we set up an undercover operation to dismantle Julia's network. It was risky, but the thought of stopping her from ruining other families gave me the courage to proceed. We documented every shady deal, every illicit meeting, and soon, we had enough evidence to involve the police. The police took it from there, leading to several arrests within the network, including Julia. The sight of her being led away in handcuffs was oddly satisfying, a twisted sense of justice served. But the story didn't end there. As expected, the media had a field day. The story made headlines, thrusting our family into the unwanted spotlight. Reporters camped outside our house, cameras flashing, questions flying. It was overwhelming, to say the least. The scandal brought attention we didn't need, but it also shone a light on these kinds of schemes, hopefully preventing others from falling victim. Amidst the chaos, support came from unexpected places. Strangers and friends alike reached out, sharing their own stories of betrayal and resilience. It was comforting to know we weren't alone, that others had faced similar battles and come out stronger. As the media frenzy slowly died down, I realized something important. This whole ordeal had been a nightmare, no doubt, but it had also brought out a strength in me I didn't know I had. I wasn't just surviving, I was fighting back, reclaiming my life and my dignity. Sure, there were scars. Trust was still a fragile thing between Mark and me, but we were working on it. Rebuilding what Julia had tried to destroy. And with the support of friends, both old and new, I felt a sense of hope I hadn't felt in a long time. Julia might have started this war, but I finished it. And in the end, I came out stronger. Because if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about rising up, even when the odds are against you. And that's exactly what I plan to keep doing. Sometimes, the hardest part of moving forward is not looking back, I thought, staring at the packed boxes in our new living room. The fresh paint and empty rooms symbolized a new beginning, but the memories we left behind clung to me like stubborn cobwebs. Mark and I were doing the unthinkable, we were trying to heal together. Couples therapy sessions became our new normal. Sitting in those rooms, facing each other, forced us to confront the raw and ugly truths of our past. The therapist's calm voice guided us through the murky waters of betrayal, and slowly, brick by brick, we started to rebuild trust. Some days, it felt like we were making progress. Other days, the scars felt fresh and deep. But we were trying. Moving to a new house was a big step. We needed a change of scenery, a place untainted by memories of infidelity and deceit. The new house was smaller but cozier, with a garden that Mark promised to maintain. It was our way of starting fresh, a tangible symbol of our commitment to move forward. In our quest to find purpose, we threw ourselves into community involvement. Volunteering at local shelters and food drives became our weekend ritual. Helping others brought a sense of peace and fulfillment, a way to give back and distract ourselves from our personal turmoil. It was in those moments of shared purpose that I saw glimpses of the man I fell in love with. But healing is never a straight path. Old wounds have a nasty habit of resurfacing when you least expect it. A song on the radio, a familiar scent, or an offhand comment could trigger a flood of painful memories. It was like walking on a minefield, never knowing when the next explosion of emotion would come. Those moments tested our resolve, reminding us that the past wasn't entirely behind us. Just when I thought things were stabilizing, Tom dropped a bombshell. Over coffee, his face serious, he confessed that he still had feelings for me. Great, just what I needed. Another complication in my already messy life. Tom had been my rock, my confidant, throughout this ordeal. But his confession threw our friendship into a confusing spiral. Torn between rekindling something with Tom and fully committing to Mark, I found myself at a crossroads. Tom was safe, familiar, and undeniably caring. But my marriage, despite its flaws and the betrayal, was something I wasn't ready to give up on. I needed to make a choice, and it wasn't an easy one. In the end, I chose Mark. Maybe it was the therapy, the new house, or the countless nights spent talking and crying. Or maybe it was the simple belief in the strength of our bond and the possibility of a better future together. Tom was understanding, though visibly hurt. We agreed to maintain our friendship, but the boundaries were now clear. Mark and I renewed our commitment to each other. It wasn't a grand gesture or a dramatic declaration. It was in the small things. The morning coffee he made just right, the way he held my hand when I felt overwhelmed, and the quiet moments of understanding. It was these small acts of love that reassured me we were on the right path. As I unpacked the last box, placing the picture of our wedding day on the mantel, I felt a sense of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, filled with challenges and the lingering shadows of our past. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like we were moving forward, one step at a time, together. You'd think after everything that happened, I'd be done with surprises. But life has a funny way of proving you wrong when you least expect it. Take that random Tuesday afternoon, for example. I was at the supermarket, just trying to decide between brands of pasta, when I saw her. Julia, of all people, freshly out on bail and apparently shopping for groceries like any other suburban housewife. I froze, a box of spaghetti in my hand, watching her from the corner of my eye. She looked different, tired, worn out. The confident predator was now a wounded, wary animal. Our eyes met, and I braced myself for the worst. But what I got instead was unexpected. She walked up to me, and I could see the struggle in her eyes. "Sarah," she said, her voice trembling. I'm sorry. For everything." "Wait, what?" I blinked, trying to process her words. This was the woman who had tried to dismantle my life, now standing in front of me, apologizing. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or throw the spaghetti at her. She continued, her eyes cast down. "I know I've hurt you. I've hurt a lot of people. And I'm trying to change. I really am." There was sincerity in her voice that I couldn't ignore. Against my better judgment, I found myself believing her. Forgiveness is a tricky thing. It's not about letting the other person off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and resentment. As much as I wanted to hold on to my rage, I realized it was time to let go. I took a deep breath. "I forgive you, Julia. But it's going to take time to move past all of this." Her relief was palpable, and she thanked me before walking away, leaving me with a strange sense of closure. Maybe people could change, or maybe I just needed to believe they could. That encounter sparked an idea. Inspired by everything we'd been through, I decided to start a support group for those affected by infidelity and deceit. Lisa, my unexpected ally through it all, agreed to join as a co-founder. We wanted to create a space where people could share their stories, heal together, and find strength in community. To my utter astonishment, Julia reached out, offering to help with the support group. She wanted to use her insights to prevent others from falling into the traps she once set. It was a bold move, and I wasn't sure how the group would react, but I decided to give her a chance. Everyone deserves a shot at redemption, right? The support group grew rapidly, and with it came new challenges. We were constantly navigating the fine line between offering support and maintaining boundaries. Julia's involvement was controversial, but her honesty and genuine regret began to win people over. She became an unexpected ally in our mission to heal and educate. In the midst of all this, Tom found new love. Watching him with his new partner, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It eased the tension between us and allowed our friendship to flourish again. Seeing him happy was a reminder that life moves on, and so should we. Mark and I, despite everything, had made it through. On our anniversary, we renewed our vows in a small, intimate ceremony. It wasn't about grand gestures, it was about reaffirming our commitment to each other. We promised to cherish and protect one another, to learn from the past, and to face the future together. As we stood there, exchanging vows, I realized that closure doesn't always come in a neat package. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's ongoing. But it's also empowering. We had faced our demons, battled our way through, and come out stronger. And for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. You'd think rebuilding a marriage after an affair would be like trying to put together a shattered vase with superglue. And you'd be right. That's what ran through my head as I stared at Mark, both of us sweaty and out of breath from our latest trust-building activity, rock climbing. Who knew conquering a fear of heights could also help conquer a fear of betrayal? Trust building had become our new normal. We threw ourselves into activities that forced us to rely on each other, like the aforementioned rock climbing, and cooking classes where one wrong move could set the kitchen on fire. It was exhausting, exhilarating, and oddly satisfying. Open communication was our mantra. No more secrets, no more lies. Just brutal, sometimes painful honesty. And it was working. Our families rallied around us, their support unwavering. They helped us heal in ways we hadn't expected. My mom, who had never been one for heart-to-hearts, started inviting us over for weekly dinners, offering her silent strength and homemade lasagna. Mark's brother, who usually communicated in grunts, even managed to crack a joke about the whole situation, lightening the mood in a way only he could. Despite the scandal, Mark's career flourished. Turns out, hard work and dedication can overcome a lot, including public humiliation. He poured himself into his job, earning respect and accolades from his colleagues. Watching him succeed was bittersweet. It reminded me of the man I fell in love with and the mistakes he made. But it also filled me with pride. As for me, I rediscovered my passions. I took up painting again, something I hadn't done since college. It was messy and imperfect, just like my life, but it brought me a sense of peace. I also started running, not away from my problems, but towards a healthier, stronger version of myself. Personal growth became my new addiction. Then there was Max, our rescue dog. A scruffy, lovable mutt who brought joy and companionship into our lives. Adopting him was a spur-of-the-moment decision, but it turned out to be one of the best we made. Max had a way of sensing when one of us needed comfort, nudging us with his nose or curling up beside us. He became a symbol of our new beginning. Our support group flourished too, gaining recognition for its impact. Seeing the difference we made in people's lives brought a sense of accomplishment and pride. We were no longer just victims of betrayal, we were survivors, helping others navigate their own storms. One evening, an old friend from college showed up at our meeting. Emily had gone through a similar ordeal, and our shared experiences reignited our bond. It was comforting to reconnect with someone who knew me before life got so complicated. Our renewed friendship became another pillar of support. Mark and I also started traveling more. We explored new places, creating new memories together. Each adventure was a step away from the past and a step toward our future. From hiking in the Rockies to strolling through the streets of Paris, we rediscovered the joy of experiencing life together. But even as we moved forward, shadows of the past occasionally loomed. Old wounds resurfaced at the most unexpected times, testing our resolve. Yet, with every challenge, we grew stronger. Our journey was far from over, but for the first time, I felt hopeful. In the end, rebuilding a marriage isn't about forgetting the past. It's about learning from it, growing together, and creating a future worth fighting for. And as I looked at Mark, smiling and tired from our latest adventure, I knew we were on the right path. Together, we were moving forward, one step at a time. You'd think after rock climbing and navigating the emotional landmine of betrayal, we'd be ready for anything. But life's curveballs have a way of hitting you where it hurts most. That's what I thought as Mark and I sat in the doctor's office, waiting for results that could change everything. Facing fears head-on had become our modus operandi, and this was no different. The health scare was a stark reminder of life's fragility, and it brought us closer, forcing us to reaffirm our commitment to each other. But let's rewind a bit. We had been doing well, really well. Every milestone in our journey was celebrated, no matter how small. The first time we managed to talk about the affair without either of us tearing up felt like running a marathon. We even threw a small party to commemorate our one-year anniversary of starting fresh. It was all about appreciating progress and not perfection. Then came the family reunion. You'd think after everything, a family gathering would be a walk in the park. Wrong. Old wounds have a nasty habit of resurfacing when you least expect them. A snide comment from a well-meaning aunt here, a whispered rumor there, and suddenly, you're back in the thick of it, defending choices and actions you thought were buried. But amidst the tension, there were moments of healing. We confronted the past, aired grievances, and, in some twisted way, it brought us closer. There's nothing like a good family drama to force reconciliation. Back to the health scare. Sitting in that sterile room, Mark and I held hands, bracing ourselves for the worst. The doctor's somber face did nothing to ease our anxiety. But when the results came back clear, the relief was overwhelming. We walked out of there with a renewed sense of life's preciousness, more determined than ever to make every moment count. We channeled this newfound perspective into something positive. Inspired by our journey, we decided to start a scholarship fund in our community. It was our way of giving back, of leaving a legacy that would outlast our personal trials. Helping others achieve their dreams felt like the perfect antidote to the chaos we'd endured. Our support group continued to grow, and with it, our role as mentors. Sharing our story with young couples, offering guidance and support, it all felt incredibly fulfilling. We were no longer defined by our past mistakes but by how we had overcome them. And then came the unexpected gift. An anonymous donation to our support group allowed us to expand our reach, helping even more people navigate their own storms. It was humbling and gratifying, a testament to the impact of our efforts. Our friends and family, recognizing the strides we had made, surprised us with a celebration. It was a gathering filled with laughter, tears, and heartfelt toasts. They honored our resilience, our determination to rebuild and move forward. Standing there, surrounded by the people who had supported us through the darkest times, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Facing fears, confronting old wounds, celebrating milestones, each step had brought us closer. The health scare was a reminder that life is unpredictable, but it also reinforced our commitment to each other. Building a legacy through our scholarship fund, mentoring young couples, and expanding our support group were all testaments to our growth. As the night of our surprise celebration came to a close, I looked at Mark, feeling a mix of pride and relief. We had come a long way from the brink of collapse. Our journey was far from over, but for the first time, I felt confident in our future. We had faced our fears, and in doing so, emerged stronger and more united. Together, we were ready to face whatever came next, one step at a time. You'd think after everything we've been through, the story would end with a happily ever after. But life isn't a fairy tale, and our journey is far from over. That's what I kept telling myself as I stared at the blank page on my laptop. Encouraged by friends and our support group, I had decided to write our story, hoping it would inspire others facing similar challenges. Writing the book was like reopening old wounds and then stitching them back together with words. I poured every emotion, every detail, into the manuscript. The betrayal, the pain, the reconciliation, it all flowed from my fingertips, raw and unfiltered. Mark supported me, reading each chapter, sometimes with tears in his eyes, sometimes with a reassuring smile. It was therapeutic, a way to make sense of the chaos we had endured. When the book was finally published, it felt like a weight had been lifted. But with it came an unexpected twist: media attention. Suddenly, our story was everywhere. Interviews, speaking engagements, TV appearances, the whirlwind was both exhilarating and terrifying. I found myself in front of cameras, sharing our darkest moments with strangers, hoping our journey would resonate and offer hope. The attention brought mixed feelings. On one hand, it was empowering to know our story was making a difference. On the other, it felt invasive, like our lives were under a microscope again. But the messages from readers kept me going. Stories of survival, resilience, and renewed hope flooded in, each one a testament to the power of sharing and connecting. Empowering others through our story became our new purpose. We traveled across the country, speaking at events, leading workshops, and offering support. Each interaction reaffirmed our decision to go public, to turn our pain into a beacon for others navigating their own storms. It was fulfilling in a way I hadn't expected, giving our struggles meaning beyond our personal journey. As we looked forward to the future, Mark and I embraced the uncertainties and joys of life with newfound confidence. The past would always be a part of us, but it no longer defined us. Our love had been tested and tempered by fire, and it was stronger for it. We learned to cherish the small moments, to laugh at the absurdities, and to face challenges with a united front. One evening, after a particularly moving book signing, Mark and I sat on the porch of our new home, sipping wine and watching the sunset. It was one of those rare, perfect moments where everything felt right. "We've come a long way," I said, leaning into him, feeling his warmth and strength. "Yeah, we have," he replied, his voice filled with a mix of wonder and gratitude. "And we've got a bright future ahead." Looking into the horizon, I felt a sense of peace. We had written a new chapter in our lives, one filled with hope, resilience, and endless possibilities. Our story was far from over, but as we turned the page, I knew we were ready for whatever came next, confident in our love and partnership. As the stars began to twinkle above, I couldn't help but smile. Life might not be a fairy tale, but it was our story, and it was beautiful in all its imperfections. And that was more than enough